Good evening. We are in John 2, Gospel according to John 2. In the middle of that chapter, it talks about the Passover, and there were some Jewish people at the temple, and they were misusing God's place of worship, the temple. And in verse 13 it says, the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple, verse 14, those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of money sitting. And 15, and when he had made a scourge or a whip of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple and the sheep and the oxen and poured out the changers' money and overthrew the tables. He was not pleased. In verse 16, and said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house a house of merchandise. So later on in that chapter, it talks about in verse 19, destroy this temple, Jesus is speaking, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Because the people were asking, well, what's going on? What sign showeth thou unto us, seest thou doest these things, right? That you will do all this, the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. And in verse 20, it says, 46 years this temple was built. And then you're saying that you would destroy this temple back in verse 19, and in 3 days you will raise it up. Well, Jesus went into the symbolic, right? He was referring to his own body as the temple. And we know in 1 Corinthians 3:16 how it says that the body, right? Our body, this flesh, is the temple of the Holy Spirit. That's why we have to respect it. We have to glorify it, and we have to treat it so carefully. I was in the store earlier, and I was reading word by word the accounts of 6 women who were allegedly under the bondage of my former classmate, choir mate, Robert Kelly, R. Kelly. And it was so repulsive what I was reading, as far as they were essentially involved in sexual slavery, where it was just terrible. Anyway, pretty much I thought about this and saying, like, he pretty much treated these women as merchandise and their bodies as just a thing that could just be bought and just used and just be tossed. And it was horrible. All allegations. I wasn't there. But the point is, in verse 21, it says Jesus was speaking as the temple of the Holy Spirit is the body, and we have to take care of it. In 1 Corinthians 6:19, it goes on further, talking about how it is imperative for us to glorify God in our body, right? Because it's not our own. Who's the owner? Our Father, our Creator. So I was having this conversation with a teenager earlier, and they were saying, you know what, no young person is going to hear this, in 2019, as far as, saving your body for marriage and everything. And I said, guess what? The first point is this. The first point is that you cannot abuse the temple that the Lord has created. The second point, abuse. The second word is ageless. The Bible is ageless and timeless. What was the standard for people and Christians 100 years ago, followers of Christ, is the same standard for 2019, no matter what age, right? If you're a follower of Christ, you cannot be treating your body like a piece of steak, right? Or just whatever, just abusing it, or putting whatever substances you want in there, drugs, just abusing it, eating the wrong type of foods. If you know that is harmful, right? If you know that you are abusing and you are not glorifying the Lord, guess what? That's you got to give an account of this, right? Because this body is going to go back to the dust, the dirt, and then our spirit goes back to the destination of how we've been living. So we have to really be serious about how we're treating this temple. It's not just, to make it look pretty. It's to serve God. It's a container. It's a vessel. So the first word is abuse. We can't do it. The second word is this is ageless. These attributes, as far as a word, as far as us living a standard, that is glorifying the Lord. And the third A word is, look, Jesus knows about people because he started doing other miracles all around the temple. And it says in verse 24, Jesus did not commit himself unto them because he knew all men, right? And verse 25, and needed not that any should testify of man, for he knew what was in man. God knows the heart. Right? In 1 Samuel 16:7, it says, man looks at, the outside, you look great. You're tall. You're handsome. But God knows what's really inside us. He knows what we're struggling with. He knows our appetites. And if you have something that you have, like, I can't get rid of this. I can't help it. The things that I want to do, I don't do. And the things that I don't want to do, I keep on doing it. Right? That's what Paul was saying. The Lord knows about these struggles, and he wants you to acknowledge them, put them on the altar and say, Jesus, I need help. I need for you to take this appetite away from me. This appetite, whatever is pornography, whether it's sexual sin, keep on sleeping around, whatever it is, drugs, drink, whatever. Jesus wants to break those cords, the bondage, the slavery, so that you can be free and experience abundant life. There's too many people who have experienced the cutting of those addictions, and God will do it for you. Come to him, lay it on the altar and say, Lord, I can't do this on my own. And I'm telling you, the things that are impossible with men are possible with God. All right. I hope you have a good evening, glorifying the Lord, delving deeper into his will and enjoying his presence.